Hey there, it's Michelle with Brilliant Quest. And you know the reason why you can't get motivated is because it's all inside. Hey there, I want to talk to you about a six-part method that I use and that I'm going to share with you to get you to do stuff when you don't feel like doing it, when you're not motivated. So first, I'm going to just give you the tip. The tip is motivation is an internal issue or an internal flip that you have to turn on. You can be inspired externally, but to motivate yourself is something that you have to do. So let's first and foremost understand that. All right. And we're going to do the way I normally do. I'm going to give you the 6 points up front, and then we're going to go through each one of them. And you want to stay to the end because I'm going to be giving you the next part. This is loosely going to be a 3-part series. And by the time we get through with it, you're going to have a method to use. You're going to have a better understanding of how to position yourself. And then you're going to really be able to work on a higher level of consistent motivation. All right. All right. So let's go. So in this 6-part method, the first 2 are all about creating. Then the middle 2 are about structuring. And then the last 2 are about operating. All right. So the first thing you want to do is, number 1, you want to create a personal reward system. When we want to be motivated, we have to have something worth it. It is funny that motivation is all about movement and momentum. And you can't really have movement and momentum without a finish line, without a reward. And so research over the years, and because I'm not trying to make this too long, I'm not going to mention all of the different researches and all of that kind of stuff, but they've done research with children. They've done research with adults. They've done research that was questionable as to why would you do that, and all of these others. And what they have found is there is a certain type of reward system, intrinsic and extrinsic, that gets people to do stuff. All right. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you take control and make your own personal reward system. The second one, and I'll go into this a little bit more afterwards, but I want to make sure you get this good stuff. Okay. So the second one is going to be, you're going to create your strategy and structure. And when you're creating your strategy and structure, it's not the boring kind of, okay, I've got to know all this stuff about myself. Nope. It's about getting organized. It's about getting priorities. It's about taking out the stuff that's not going to work for you. And it's about understanding how you operate and what makes you tick, not somebody else. What makes you tick, and that's going to be the structure. And it's important that you have your reward system and your strategy and structure set up, because everything else sits on top of that. All right. All right. So number 3 is going to be how you address mental confusion and complexity. And when you're trying to be motivated, sometimes it's hard to be motivated when there are nothing but obstacles, fog, confusion, and complexity staring back at you. And so the mind will tend to tell you, hey, let's find something else to do. There's no clear path on even how to get started. All right. All right. So that's number 3. Number 4 is going to be to develop. Now, this one is the one that really took my ability to do something when I didn't want to do something over the top. It's this one. And it is to develop your leadership and your management system for yourself. There is a difference between leading and managing. And once I started to figure that out, things changed. That's how I was able to start working for myself. And I have been working for myself since 2007. And when you got to work for yourself and you got to stay motivated, trust me, you will learn how to do things. And I will be honest with you, it wasn't until in the last year or 2 that I learned about the component of leadership and management for myself, being a leader of one. Okay. But we're going to get into that. So stick with me. Okay. Number 5. All right. Number 5 is going to be, now this is where we're starting to move into how to be practically able to use this method. And number 5 is all about time. And we're going to be using time delay and time motivation. All right. So there's 2 ways we're going to be using time. And those 2 ways are going to branch off in different branches, depending on what you need to do. And it'll possibly change depending on each project. Okay. All right. And then the 6th one. The 6th one is going to be, how do you commit to completion? This is actually about visualization before you start having, or even if you're not able to visualize, pretending, imagining, or finding something that closely resembles what it is that you want to achieve. And so it's all about the commitment to the completion and momentum and movement, hopefully forward. All right. All right. So now that we've got those 6, let's get down into the weeds on them. And I'm telling you, this is going to be good stuff. And the reason why it's going to be good stuff is because this is not theory. This is not pie in the sky. This is based on over 15 years of, I got to pay those bills. and I'm sharing it with you, no holds barred, just, sharing it, not putting it behind a paywall. So listen up, just because you happened up on this video, however you got here, does not mean that this is not stuff that me and others could and some would charge you a lot to gain, because it is a shortcut and it is going to help you hopscotch your way to be able to be motivated to do stuff when you don't want to, when you are kicking and fussing and all of that kind of stuff. All right, let's get into it. So the first one, it's all about that reward system. Like I said in the intro, rewards are what help us to keep going. They are the carrot that keeps you moving forward. And when you're wanting to get something done that you don't want to do, 9 times out of 10, it's because you don't know what the benefit is of doing it. And there are certain motivators that we have that are not just necessarily about money, but they all kind of help us to be able to move forward. And for some people, it's going to be desires for things that you can't buy, like a good reputation, like comfort, or feeling accomplished, completions. For some people, it's going to be to gain health. For some people, it's going to be to gain knowledge for self-mastery, those intrinsic things of, I just need to know for myself. And I've done a video before on the 9 secret desires. And what I'll do is I'll try to see if I can put them up here for you, the feelings. And they're based on feelings that we all have. But these feelings are going to also help you to develop what reward you want. So say, for instance, it's time to clean up, or get things back in order so that you don't have a cluttered workspace and a cluttered mind and all that other stuff. And I'm being a little hypocritical here because this is one of mine. And I'm like, I got to stop and do all of this, And so I will just cut to the chase. Going through this method helped me to not make this such a big deal. And so that's why I can use it, because I've got the victory and I'm going to show you how to go through these things. But the first thing I had to start doing was I had to start realizing it's up to me to give myself a reward. If it only promises you heartache, pain, time lost, expenditure of energy, you're not going to want to do it. So the first thing I started doing was I was like, okay, if you, go through all of these papers, because it used to be paper. Oh my God, it was so much paper. I was like, have you not met a trash can when it comes to all of the mail that comes into the house? And so one of the things I started doing is I was like, okay, get this organized today. And then tomorrow you can, and it would be some kind of guilty pleasure. One of the things that when I was first starting to learn how to keep myself motivated, when no one else is, around keeping me motivated, when it was just me, I had to not fall into the trap of rewarding myself with food. Food and my relationship with it has grown over the years, but that was one of the big ones. Don't reward with food, reward with something else. So I would reward myself with, you get this done, and then you can go and read, some chapters on your favorite book, or you can binge watch some stuff on Netflix or something like that. And because I was giving myself a reward that I knew, do the hard stuff first, eat the frog first, and then give yourself a reward. Now, the reward can't be, so long. But when I started putting the reward kind of sort of in the same realm, meaning that you clear all this stuff out and get all the mind clutter out, then you'll allow your mind to enjoy some stuff as a treat. And so what ended up happening was, as I started making and taking control of my own reward system and choosing stuff that was kind of in the same realm, but it started getting to where I didn't even have to think about it. It's like now, okay, we change linens on Saturdays, clean up the room and all of that. And my mind instinctively knows I get to watch anime that night, because I've been doing it so many years that the more often that you decide and determine a good reward for yourself, that reward is going to inch itself closer to the act that triggers the reward, so that the act that triggers the reward is not so bad. And you take the sting out of, I don't want to do this, that kind of thing. Okay. So create your own rewards. Do not just say, I got to do this because I got to do this. No, you got to do this because, and give it a reward. All right. So, I want to say a lot more about rewards because of how they work in the brain, and how receiving a reward can, trigger certain areas in the brain of the reward center, of triggering the dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all of those different hormonal endorphins that run around. But we'll say that one for another one because we have 5 more of these to go. All right. All right. The next one is, and this one is really something that I shied away from because I thought it was hard, and that's creating your strategy and your structure. Okay. So now your strategy, like I said before, when you're trying to get motivated, it does not have to be anything really complex, but it does need to have at least three things. And those three things, you don't even have to write them down. Well, what am I going to do first? What am I going to do to keep going? And what am I going to do to finish? Once you can slot in, what am I going to do first? And when you say, what am I going to do first? What is going to give you the biggest bang for the buck to get the quickest, and it can be a small, but the quickest win to trigger yourself to understand I'm building momentum, I'm getting this done. Overwhelm. Overwhelm is a direct result, and I don't want to make it so simplistic. So I'm going to say it can be a direct result of not knowing how to start. And those are those old adages that say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that still applies here. I'm not gonna, say, oh, it's not that. No, it still applies here. Doing one thing. For me, you guys, you don't understand. It's the paper. Oh my God, it's the paper. And there are times, even now, where I have to remind myself, Michelle, you got a process and a method to do this. And a lot of times I'll go and I'll just be like, okay, just pick up the first piece. Just the first piece. Or even if I can't pick up the first piece, it's like, just get the trash bag open and ready. And then before you know it, I got the trash bag open and ready. I've picked up the first piece. I've looked at it and like, okay, trash, and all this kind of stuff. And I take it step by step. So once I get through all of the crap, the paper and stuff, the next thing is to keep going. And for me, keep going is oh Lord, I got to shred all of this. Yeah, that used to be a big one. It's okay. I'm like, okay, shredding can be a multitask. Yeah, it can, and so I have made this deal with myself of when it's, getting rid of paper time, we shred, but we give ourselves some days to shred. Yeah. And then for the finish line looks like me visualizing all of that paper shredded and at the curb ready for trash day, and like I said, I'm trying to give you what it looks like in the wild so that it's not just all this, intangible theory, because I am never motivated to go through old papers. I'm just not. And I don't know. I try to get people not to send me stuff, paper. I try to always do, and again, you still get paper. I'm like, poor trees. But anyway, all right. So, strategy, getting prioritized. What gives you the biggest bang for the buck? And then if you can't figure out anything else, the three, what needs to happen first? What do I need to keep going and not lose heart? And then number three, what does completion look like? I don't care what you say. This is some good stuff. Because when I was turned around and not knowing what to do and scared, because I was like, oh my God, how do I work for myself? Because there's a lot of stuff that happens when you're trying to work for yourself. And one of them, you don't realize, you must find and fight for your way to stay motivated, because motivation is movement and momentum. And without those two, you languish and you just waste away day by day, not getting anything done. All right. So the second part of this part of creating your strategy, you got to create your structure. And your structure, think of your structure as the foundation and the framework of a house or a building. You have to have some containment. One of the things that we don't realize is motivation is hard because motivation lives in the area of personal freedom. And personal freedom is like a wild Mustang. It will run you to death. And so it's kind of like you have to get the reins pulled back in. When there's something that you want to do, build your structure, because your structure is going to be the boundary lines. It's going to look like this. It's going to look like the scope of work of what I can call done or what I can call success or completion. Because sometimes you're trying to eat that whole elephant or create that whole thousand mile journey with one leap. And it's because you don't have the foundations and the structure. When you start creating what I'm going to get done first, second, and third, and you're looking at it and you understand I've got to have some parameters, some boundaries, some structure for this, some framework, you're going to start to realize what is realistic so that you don't bite off too much. Now, I'm still overly optimistic, so I'm not going to say that it's going to be a win, off the rip. I'm still working on that, but I don't over project as far and as much as I used to. I'm going to tell you, personally, for me, when working with clients where I needed to have deliverables, and I'm looking at this mountain of what needs to happen, by doing this, of setting up my strategy and setting up my structure, I was better able to understand how to break down stuff in phases. Clients are really understanding when you tell them, this is the first phase. This is what we're going to get done first, second, third, and fourth. They like it when you are understanding of what your sources are and what they need. Because remember, strategy is going to help you to prioritize what comes first. What is the biggest bang for the buck with the shortest amount of distance? It's going to help you to not overextend yourself so that you get nothing done because you're overwhelmed. Remember, overwhelm and motivation lives in the area of freedom, and freedom will get you overwhelmed if you don't rein it in, if you do not have a structure for it. Okay, this is good. Don't tell me it's not, because just by these first two, and the first one was figure out your reward system. Have a reason, a reward reason for why you're going to get this done. You take responsibility of that, not somebody else. You take responsibility of that. And then number two, create your strategy and then create your structure. Your structure is going to help you maintain and keep your scope of work. It's going to keep you out of overwhelm. It's going to help you to understand the resources you have and the resources it takes to get something done. It's going to, oh my God, it's going to help you so much because it's manageable. We'll talk a little bit about the manageableness, a little later, but just understand that it's going to help you. And I'm telling you to do these parts first. Create the reward, create the strategy, create the structure. Because the next stage of this method, you're going to address mental confusion and complexity. By doing these strategies, they start to illuminate the deficiencies that you are experiencing with trying to get this something done. Now, remember, this works whether you're quote unquote naturally motivated, but especially when you're not. This is how folks do it day in and day out, whether they're using my method or not. This is what they do because you came to prosper, not to fail over and over again. And if you can take down the probability of a failure because it was preventable, let's do that. All right. So mental confusion and complexity. In my podcast, I had this podcast where I looked at something that plagues a lot of us, and it is how to do simple things with a complex mind. And in there, I started understanding that people who are usually really intelligent, one of the things that they finally start doing is they start eliminating things that take away from their mental processes and power. That's why you'll see a lot of people who do a lot of mental health heavy lifting. They wear the same quote unquote uniform every day. Now, it's not the same clothes, but they might, if there's a comfortable shirt or top, they're going to buy like 20 of them. They're going to buy them in long sleeve and short sleeve. If there are certain type of pants or shoes, that's what they're going to do, because that takes away some of the inputs that would cause stuff that they would normally be able to do if they had the freedom and the time and the clarity to do it. They take away all of those little foxes that spoil the vine, where it becomes complex because they're dealing with, okay, what am I going to wear today? What am I going to eat today? And so they take away a lot of that. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and buy the same clothing uniform for every day. But what I am saying is first and foremost, take an inventory of the stuff that you really should either outsource or not put that much energy into. If, for instance, you work from home and working from home, I'm just going to tell you, that's another reason why I'm doing this, is because a lot of people working from home are losing motivation. They don't know how to get it, and they don't know how to do stuff when they don't feel it. And so this is why, another reason why we're having this. But working from home, make sure your top, it's presentable. If people don't have to see your bottoms, all the time. It's not necessarily something that you want to do all the time. But if your brain is needed to solve complex things, order your food for the week, or do like I do on Saturdays and Sundays, cook for the week. That's something I've done before it was, popular. Cooking for the week, because when I don't do it, I suffer. My productivity suffers. My mental capacity to do suffers, because that's something I have to think of. It really helps you to get clear, not because you're doing these mental hurdles of intelligent gymnastics, but because you took out the stuff that does not need that much mental power. All right. Another thing about confusion. Take an inventory. Just take a piece of paper and write. I want you to actually write it out, because it's really going to help you get in yourself and not just trying to think of the obvious, surface level stuff. But I want you to just write out everything that causes you to pause, everything that you don't know, everything that you don't want to do or you quote unquote dread. And those are going to be areas of confusion that, because you got them out of your head, you can look at them. They can live on that paper outside of your head. And guess what? You don't even have to solve them first. You just have to have them outside of your head where you can look at them. And as you come upon them, you deal with them just in time. Okay? To keep it going. The next thing is complexity. Have you ever had something that you dreaded only to do it, and it was way easier than you thought it was going to be? Now, I know a lot of times it's the reverse, but think about those times when you did something that you were dreading it. You were like, oh, it's going to be so hard. It's going to take so long. It's going to be so labor intensive. It's this and that. And then you finally do it. And when it did not take long, and it was not hard. It might have been tedious, but you persevered through. So when you're dealing with complexity, one of the things that you would do well to do is to remember that you're going to press. You're just going to press and keep going. You just eat that elephant one bite at a time. And I know this stuff sounds cliche. I know it's not dazzling, but it works, especially when you're doing it in a nice method and order where you're taking down all of those things that would knock you out of the ring, where you just throw your hands up and say, it's no use. I can't do this. Now, it's important that you work on the confusion and the complexity issues, because that is where distraction likes to strike. If your mind keeps coming up against hurdle after hurdle and it hasn't a way to get around it, it will shut down. And then next thing you know, you'll be in your closet organizing the kids' clothes for next year. Something crazy. And you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is, once you have taken your list of the things, that confuse you or are in areas of gray, also look at the areas that cause you to dread, the areas that cause you to have complexity. There are times when you are right on the head and it is hard and you are dreading it because in and of what you possess at the time, you don't have the resources. This is another time for you to start jotting down possible ways that you can get the tight knotted mass untangled, depending on what it is. Resources abound, whether it be online or whether it be picking up a phone to figure out something. There is a book and it's called NeuroWisdom, and I'll put the link of it up. And one of the things that, now they are a company they're geared toward executives and people in the workforce who have, a lot of management responsibility and the like. And one of the things that they talked about was how to deal with complex issues. And there was this one part that I was like, I'm snatching that. That's for me. And I have been amazed at how well it will work. So now they were talking about it by networking to get a job or, to generate business. But this works when you're trying to stay motivated like a charm. Okay. And I'll tell you one of them that I did recently. Okay. So what they said in the book is to contact someone and ask them if you could pick their brain or take them to lunch and interview them about what they do. And they said it's better to do it this way because people don't have a problem telling you what they do, and they don't feel like they're put on the spot to have to exert any extra energy. And especially if it's a quick conversation on the phone, or it's a quick lunch or a coffee or a quick meetup, they're happy to do that. And it helps you to know the inside of what's really going on. Okay, so let me tell you what I did. In my state where I live, and I live in the Atlanta, Georgia area, so Georgia, I wanted to start YouTube. And every time I started trying to edit, it was just horrible. I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna have a YouTube channel. And so what I did was, because that was an obstacle and it was making me run away and not be motivated to do YouTube, I said, Michelle, you have learned how to teach yourself so many things over the years for your business. You can do this. And I took what they said in NeuroWisdom. And do you know what I did? I went and I found our technical colleges here, the community college, the trades centers. And lo and behold, I found two that offered an associate's in video editing. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I sent emails, and one of them responded back. Shout out to Atlanta Technical. And I sent it to the dean and the vice dean of that area. And I said, would you be willing to answer 5 questions for me? And I went on and put the questions in so it wouldn't be a back and forth. Do you know that they answered the questions? And because of how they answered the questions, with me telling them, I'm like, okay, here's my situation. This is what I'm trying to do. And this is what I did. I was like, should I come and take your program for what I want to do? And I told them about YouTube, and I told them about the resources that I had. So what I did was, because I had done the stages of my strategy, because I had put my areas of confusion, I could better articulate the complexity of what I was facing. And the dean, the lady, she was like, no, you don't need to come here. Start on your phone. Technology is such that you can do this. And then she even told me the 3 things that I needed to concentrate on. And I'm going to share them with you because you'll see them in my videos. She was like, use call outs or text to emphasize what you're saying. Use a meme or some type of pattern interrupt visual to accentuate or offer humor on what you're saying. And then she said, make sure that you recap. Do a recap. And those are the 3 components to get you started with video editing. Do you know, once that was done, that's when I was able to start doing YouTube. And it was because of this. And it made me so motivated, because I wouldn't have been able to encapsulate that. But I went to them. And, I was going to give them money to go to their program, but they were honest enough because I wrote down the 5 things. I told them where I was. And because I did that, they just went under each one and just answered them, got it back to me, and boom, Bob's your uncle. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, I'm telling you, this is practical stuff that you can do to be motivated when you don't feel motivated, because you're knocking them out one at a time. So that was the third one. That is to address the mental confusion and complexities that you face. Those hindrances, blockages, obstacles. Okay. So the next one is 4. Like I said before, this is one that took me years, and I really only started understanding it within the last 2 years. And that is leadership and management. A while ago, I read some books put out by Navy SEALs who were talking about leadership, and one of them, I want to say it was Jocko Wilkins. I hope I didn't mess up his name, but anyway. And he out of all that book, there was one thing that really stuck out to me. And sometimes that's what you need. That's why you read the book, because there's one thing that's going to change your life. And he talked about being a leader of one. And boy, when he did that, it sent me down the rabbit hole, because of course I was used to listening to leadership for business people and all of that, blah, blah, blah. But when he talked about being a leader of one, it helped me to change and add the tweak and the nuance so that I could better understand. And that's when I started realizing that leading myself is way different than managing myself. You see, if you try to self-manage without leadership, you will burn out, you will become unmotivated. And so with leadership is about having a vision. It's about having relationship with yourself and others. And it's also about being creative. The leader not only has to have a vision of where to go, but the leader is the first one to encounter something. So they have to find creative ways to do something. Whereas a manager is all about the data. The manager is about the short-term goals. The manager is about the process. The manager is about achieving what the leader envisions. And so when I started realizing that in order to be able to do stuff when I'm not necessarily motivated, I've got to kick in my leadership of me, the leader of one situation, to refocus or redefine or make clear the overall vision of, Michelle, you got to get this done because this helps this. And this is part of that structure. You can't have that window right there if you don't do this framework. You can't have what you want if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And so understanding that not only do you need to be able to be clear, to have your rewards, to be able to understand confusion and complexity, you've got to have a game plan for yourself as a leader for yourself and the manager. And too many times, a lot of us, we're really good on the management, self-management, but we don't have a vision. And without a vision, people perish. And so it's real important to understand that. Don't shout me down when I'm preaching good. I know that this is some good stuff because I'm shortcutting what has taken me many years to get to so that I can, take care of myself and have this solopreneur lifestyle that everybody wants to talk about. But then you get in and you understand, you're like, oh, I just might as well go get a job because this is not working. How do you stay motivated when there's no one around to make you motivated? Over the years, I have actually given my leader her own persona. And I will tell people, like folks like to, talk to you during the middle of the day when they're at their job, but you're at your job too. And some days I'm like, well, my boss, she has this goal that we're trying to achieve, and I can't do that if I can't. Or sometimes I'm talking, and that's the leader. And sometimes I'm talking about the manager. Well, my manager, she's put me on a tight deadline and this must happen, And when I talk about how revolutionary this is I'm thinking about Seth Godin. And Seth has this hard line. If you, Seth Godin is a strategist, a marketing strategist, phenomenal man. And he's written many books. But one of the things that Seth does, and I've been on his free newsletter for, I want to say 11 years. And of those 11 years, he's never missed. I mean, every day, rain or shine, holiday, weekend, he has, even if it's just one sentence, there's something in your email box. For me, it's around 5 a.m, but there's something in your email box from him, from his musings. And do you know what he says? He says, make a deadline, don't break it. That's the same thing as make a rule, don't break it. And I have cried out in the name of Seth many times when I had missed the mark and not made a deadline, and it hurt. But each time I got better and better because of understanding that your ability to lead yourself also gives you grace. And in that grace, the leader part of you is able to reconfigure so that you don't miss the deadlines the next time. I have published over 40 novels and a whole bunch of short stories over the years. And each one of them, I struggled through. And I mean, I'm not going to say I don't still struggle because it's a creative process. It is what it is. But they became easier, not because I did so many of them, but because I started using this method. It is hard to have to go and write the equivalent of 5 term papers a day of stuff that nobody else can tell you. There are no cheat sheets. There are it's your story. You got to make it real. You got to make it happen. And you told Amazon you were going to have it published on this day. So there are certain things that have to happen there, and there's nobody breathing down your throat except for you and maybe Amazon saying if you don't get this in, you won't be able to have these privileges. Those types of things. And so that's where when I started articulating over the last few years about, Michelle, you must be a leader, not only a self-manager. That's when things started to form a little bit. And if you've never listened to how I lost my mojo, it was when chemically going through the change of menopause, my mind was just doing stuff and I couldn't trust it. The things that I did manage to get done over that 7-year period was because of this method I'm sharing with you right now. So pay heed. This thing is worth giving it a try. All right. So that was number 4. Number 5 is to use time to your advantage. And so time delay and time motivation are how you're going to do this. All right. So time delay is a tactic used to help people to situate themselves into what they're going to do. You can find time delay used heavily with professional speaking or discourse when you are wanting to do better in your communication skills. One of the things that you can use is a time delay, meaning before you speak, take a pause. Not just so that you can pause, but so that you can give your brain time to organize itself so that it can put your thoughts in order. And these time delays are not very long at all. So time delays can be used as resets. Say, for instance, you have been doing something and you are overwhelmed and you're like, okay, I'm tired. I need a break. My brain is fried. Those kinds of things you say. This is a good opportunity for you to use a time delay. A time delay may be where you get up and move away. That's to me a break. But a time delay is where you, okay, I said my mind was fried. Okay, where do I go from here? And it's kind of like you reset and you give yourself enough time to figure out where you are in the process. Sometimes you'll be amazed where just by doing that, you'll be like, you have gotten off the goal and you're doing a lot of busy work that's not going to help you get something done. And, it's kind of like you've drifted off course. So that's a great way to use it. It's a great way, like I said, if you're communicating, and it's a really good reset. But then the other one, time motivation. There is this law, Pareto's law, that says the time that you give, is it Pareto or Parkinson? I'll put the right one up here. But it says the time that you appoint for a task is how long it will take the task to be done. Now, that's not all the time, because you could say, I'm going to drive from New York to LA in 2 minutes, and you're not going to do that. It is based on an informed knowledge of how long something should take you. So don't say, Michelle said. No, I'm saying that it tends to take that much time. So remember when I was talking about getting through stacks of paper? I use time management. I set a timer on my phone and I'm like, I'll be done with this by this time. Most of the time I hit before. Sometimes I'm looking down and I've got 3 seconds to go and I'm finished, but the law works. All right. I think Pareto's is 80-20. So it might be Parkinson's law. But anyway, both of them, work here. And another thing I want to say about time motivation is that, and this one is one that I really want you, if you can't do most of the others, I want you to pay attention to this one because it'll set you up for completing things. All right. When you're looking at time and you want to motivate yourself for time, start observing yourself when you do tasks to look for the biggest bangs for the buck. I mean, like, maybe we can use Pareto's in there, the 80-20, that part says that usually it's 20% of what you do that gives you 80% of the return. So, what you want to do is you want to start looking at what are the necessary steps that give you the biggest bang for the buck. And then those become your routine. All right. And so if there are things that you have to do and you have to do them more than once, quickly try to use your time motivation for the sake of developing a routine. Remember when I talked about intelligent people who do not want to get into unnecessary confusion by wearing the same clothes every day? That would fall into this. What is the routine and the habit of how I get dressed? And so you don't have to think about it. Those things that are routine become habitual, which means that you take away a lot of the mental stress and strain needed to perform them. So getting your routines in order. And then this one is a bonus one. Figure out what are the routines and then create rituals. Now, for me, a ritual is a routine with ever renewing importance and meaning. So a routine in the morning for me is, brushing my teeth, washing my face, right? A ritual for me in the morning is once I get done with that, I look in the mirror, I look myself in the eye and I tell myself, you are great. I love you. I am not going to abandon you. It is part of the routine, but it is a ritual that has meaning where I am reconnecting with the Michelle that has to live and do the stuff that the Michelle up here, the mental Michelle, the highest self Michelle wants her to do. And because it has so much meaning, it is part of my ritual practice. All right. All right. Let's round the bend because yeah, it's time. So the next one is commit to the completion, moving forward, and progress. You will be amazed at how many times you're unmotivated to do something that you know you need to do because you haven't figured out what it looks like to be completed, what gains you get, going back to the rewards, what gains you get for doing this, how will this progress you, and how will you move forward or up or whatever direction means good for you. And I catch myself a lot of times. There are times that I've been unmotivated to do something. And when I went through this process that I'm sharing with you, I realized that I didn't see any value in it for me. Remember when I talked about the 9 secret desires? I hadn't decided what desire there was. I just recently completed a project. It took a lot of time. I actually pulled an all-nighter to help get this thing finished. And it's not because I'm getting any money from it. It's because I kept my word for my reputation, and I didn't want to burn bridges. And that, like I said, has nothing to do with the money aspect, but because I understood, because I was kind of like, dreading this a little bit. But once I realized that, got it done and felt great. And I was like, oh, I got to share this with you guys because I love you, my brilliant beauties and bows. And I want to make sure that if I've got it to share, you getting it too. Okay. So I'm going to go on and recap and we're going to close this down. Thank you so much for making it to this point because I'm telling you, this is life changing. You will be able to be consistent. You will be able to be diligent because you won't have to fight these unnecessary foes and battles of trying to be motivated when you're not. You can create the momentum. You can reassess and get stuff done. All right. So here they are. This is the 6-point method that I use. And now I want you to use it too to get stuff done when you're not motivated. And that is number 1. I want you to create your personal rewards. Take the power in your hands to decide what you're going to give yourself when you get this done. Number 2, I want you to make sure that you have your strategy and your structure. Number 3, I want you to address your mental confusion and complexities about this situation, any kind of obstacles. Number 4, I want you to develop your leadership of you and your management process. Remember, leadership is the vision and the relationship, and management is the process and the short-term goals. Number 5, I want you to use time delays as well as time motivations to get things done. Remember, you're going to quickly instill your routines and make sure you have some rituals so that it has meaning for you outside of motivation because it'll give you fuel to keep going. And then number 6, I want you to commit to completing, to moving forward and to progressing. And that a lot of times will mean that you got to have in mind what it looks like to be completed. All right. So guess what? Yes. Our time is coming to a close on this part. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to comment. Tell me, interact with me, so I can, know, where to scratch where you're itching. And get ready, go, and I want you to watch this next video because it's going to keep this going so that you understand how to make obstacles and challenges work for you, and so many different other things. So guess what? I'm going to see you on the next one. This is your big sis Michelle with Brilliant Quest. Mwah.